Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. We are not starting this over a fourth time. If you're here, you already know we're a mess. So just breathe in and enjoy it. This week we are talking about Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 8, The Passenger.
You know, the first time it was funny when I did it. The second time was chuckly when you did it. And now the third time, it's just redundant. But for you, you're all in on the joke now. Keith, last week you teased it on our outro, and I got it right away, actually. But what I didn't know is that I was in store for multiple people doing that voice and some bold choices. And you know I love bold acting choices, so we get them from every angle this week. Can't wait to talk about it.
We do have some bold choices happening on this episode. But there's a little bit of story as to how we ended up with those choices, which we're going to talk about later. But before we do, we're just gonna do our little pledge drive, little NPR pledge drive to you here, and ask you, if you're watching this, if you're enjoying this, do us a huge favor.
Be bold. Help us out. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification. We are loving this pastime. We are loving this hobby, but this hobby takes a lot of time. We could use your help making it more than just a hobby. In fact, if you want to financially contribute to the show, you can do so by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/K&M, spell out the and you can join the illustrious other patrons who are getting in early in this multi-gajillion-dollar empire. Keith?
Including Alan Zimmerman, Jorge Navoa, Cloudlover69, Brian Kaufman, and Casey Clark. And let me tell you, folks, there's some really fun stuff that we have up there on the Patreon, some bonus content. We have AMAs every month. We have bonus episodes every month. You can watch Mike watch Deep Space Nine. You can watch us do our Out of Practice podcast. You can actually watch us do it. Lots of crazy fun stuff, new stuff coming in. So please join us there on patreon.com/K&M. So I think we did a little pledge drive. That was fun.
Yeah, it was great.
But I'm really excited to talk about this episode. And in order to do that, I'm going to set up the context of the world. Because Deep Space Nine Season 1, Episode 8, The Passenger, aired on Sunday, February 22nd, the year 1993. We all had our Walkmans tuned to the same tune, which we've been stuck in our head all of this time, Michael.
Bittersweet memories, that is all I'm taking with me.
That, of course, is
so goodbye,
upsetting version of I Will Always Love You, the Dolly Parton written and Whitney Houston sung smash hit in 1993. And you want to know what else was a smash hit in 1993? The top movie this weekend was Groundhog Day.
Ned?
The top movie was Groundhog Day. That
Watch out for that first
never
step.
Will get
It's a doozy.
old. It's a doozy. Needle-nosed Ned. Yes, it later adapted into a Broadway musical, which I found very delightful.
Me too. I loved it.
There it is. So the New York Times headline on this Sunday was CBS buys a theater to keep Letterman on New York's stage. So CBS bought the Ed Sullivan Theater as a way to lure David Letterman to take over the late night at the beginning of the late night wars. Letterman Leno, one of the most rewatchable HBO TV movies was about the Letterman Leno wars. I don't know why I keep watching it, but I found it enjoyable.
Multiple times you've watched it?
Multiple times. Yeah. It's
absolutely absurd.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I find the behind the scenes machinations of that kind of stuff sort of fascinating. So whatever.
Hey Keith, if you're interested in the behind the scenes machinations of this show,
yeah,
patreon.com/K&M. Okay, continue.
Yeah, you can see the ridiculous rigs that we have set up to bring you this nonsense. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights in front of me here to just show this. It seems not worth it. Anyway, so let's talk about the behind the scenes machinations of this episode of Deep Space Nine. So The Passenger was directed by Paul Lynch, and this is his third episode of the season. He also directed A Man Alone and Q-less.
Oh, we loved those.
So very busy fellow. And it was written, it had a story and teleplay by Morgan Gendel, who wrote 2 episodes of The Next Generation, including arguably one of the top 2 or 3 episodes of all of Star Trek, The Inner Light, and 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and has a teleplay by Robert Herritt Wolf, who was also the teleplay on Q-less, and of course, Michael Piller. So now that we know who wrote, who directed it, I think it's time for something trivial, Mike. What do you say?
I say this.
Now Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia. Okay. So some interesting things in this. First off, I mentioned it last week, but Colm Meaney was out this episode and the last one and the next one because he was filming a movie. And I checked IMDb. I think it's either War of the Buttons or The Road to Wellville. But Colm Meaney kept his film career going throughout the entire series, because what film isn't better with Colm Meaney in it? Let's be honest. So the next piece of trivia is Morgan Gendel, who wrote the teleplay and the story, scripted a song for Quark to sing, but it was scrapped. He said, quote, "I had Quark singing a whole little ditty like a hobbit. I took a day to write this ditty about making money while he's serving people and shorting them on their drinks. I thought it was hysterical and also thought if I turned it in, they were going to laugh me out of the room."
Trying to think where in the cut they would have put that, but
I don't think it ever got far enough to be a part of the script, because he did have the good sense of maybe let's. And I say this as somebody who has devoted my life to musical theater. Both of us have. That would be terrible.
Yeah, not a great idea. Although there is that like kind of scene right before he gets, spoiler alert, choked out, that I guess he could have been singing a little ditty.
He could have been. So anyway, glad it's not a musical.
There's never, as Keith, you would speak, as the composer of the two of us, you would speak to nothing buttons a song better than getting choked out.
For sure. Oh my God, so many dirty things that just went in my head, but we're not doing Deep Space Nine After Dark, but we know how Mike enjoys an evening. So the, It's bad. So trivia piece number 3.
Just choke me out and rub my ears.
Get some Umox to passing out. Great. Umox to unconsciousness. That's how we do Saturday nights here. All right. So the last piece of trivia is Alexander Siddig, Bashir, originally spoke in a different voice when he was doing bad Dr. Bashir, but it was scrapped. So most of his lines were ADR'd.
Interesting.
So, however, when they ADR'd it, they couldn't change the pacing.
Yep.
So whatever voice he was doing when he did a different voice, the lips had to match.
I wonder what the original voice he did was, because the one
I
he
would
did
love
felt like
to
a
know
voice. Yeah.
what the original voice was. But you know, obviously it's a little eggy. We're going to talk about it. You know, it's like a famous episode for that. But in Siddig's defense, and just imagine this, if you're in a television setup, they handed him the script the day before they shot. So he had no idea he was even the lead in the episode. No idea he was going to have to do an evil version of his character. No plan, no time to make a plan on what voice to do. He was like, oh, handed a script and go. So it definitely not setting him up for success making him come up with a bad guy Bashir voice. But that's TV for him. The pacing of it is boom, boom, boom. So there we are. The guest stars on this episode include James Lashley, who plays Lieutenant Primmin. He also played Ensign Kopf in the TNG episode Brothers. And Julie Caitlin Brown, who played Tai Gashada. She also played Vekor on the Next Generation episodes Gambit, Part 1 and 2. And for you other sci-fi nerds out there, she was also on Babylon 5. And lastly, James Harper plays Vantika, or at least the first version.
I know, poor
Vantika.
that guy. He's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get it this whole episode. And they're like, yeah, no.
No, you're gonna die. So, all right, so let us now hop into our viewing room and discuss The Passenger.
All right, here we go. I have a lot of questions actually about this episode.
Oh, great,
So
okay.
hopefully we can get to them.
Well, we'll get to them, Mike. That's the whole purpose of the show is to get to your questions.
How many more times do you think we have to cut in, Keith?
Oh my God,
At least twice, I'd say.
We're definitely not on a pace to get through this episode clean. So
No.
nonetheless,
Or do the other things we were going to do today. Looks like
No, not at all. We have no chance of doing that.
Sure.
Somebody has a hard out.
Yep.
All right. So in our teaser,
better than a hard in,
Bush-
Keith. You know what I mean?
well, it depends on your perspective. So
Is this the kind of dirty humor you're interested in? Help us out. K&M. That's after patreon.com/
oh my God, they quit halfway through episode 8. They said they were going to do the whole series, and they quit halfway through
Oh,
episode 8.
man.
What happened?
It's a delightful crap show. Delightful S show. Can we
Mm.
curse? Do we do explicit on YouTube?
Yeah, we do.
shouldn't. We should try not to. But I guess
Oh,
we just did a
okay,
sex
well.
joke.
Too late for that. All right. Well, but sci-fi lets you, be provocative, but
Mhm.
you use sci-fi terms. You'll never know. Anyway, in our teaser, Bashir and Kira are returning on the runabout. Kira is trying to compliment Bashir on saving somebody, but he is wildly obnoxious, but for some reason doesn't hit on her.
I wondered
despite-
why that was happening.
It's odd, right? Especially since they married in real life later.
Did I know that? Did we already talk about that?
I think I might have mentioned it offhand, but
Oh, that's
yeah,
weird. That's cool.
They were married for a while, and they met on the show. So there you go. But they get a distress signal on an alien ship, and they rush off to save them, naturally. And they beam onto the other ship without showing the exterior because the budget must have been tight that week. And in there, they discover a prisoner that a prisoner on the ship caused a fire, and Bashir tries to save him against the wishes of his guard. So we're on a ship. There's fire. How are you feeling at this point, Mike?
Well, the only thing I thought we were missing was a ticking clock. But then, of course, she said that he only had 90 seconds of oxygen left. So we got the ticking
It's not
clock.
a lot of oxygen.
No.
That's tough. But so Bashir comes in. Cool. I mean, it's weird they didn't have the budget to have an exterior for the ship, but they had all this fire and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, but you notice that, which I think was really disguised fairly well. Not only did they have the budget for fire, but they had the stunt budget to have the actress playing Kira come out and put the fire out. But what you can see is the insurance made it that she had to wear a fire sleeve. So she's wearing an entire fire sleeve that they attempt to doctor with costuming, but it's clearly just a huge fire sleeve she's wearing. It's pretty funny.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Good catch, Mike. Good catch. So Bashir comes up to the prisoner, but the prisoner grabs Bashir by the throat and says something. I don't know if you have the line, Mike, but it
I
goes
believe
something
it was,
like,
"Make me live."
yeah, well, if you wanted to rush through it.
Zing. It was
And-
he was into it.
Yeah, it was like, this is important. Then he dies. But
Did he
don't
grab
be
him, though?
suspicious
Does he
about
grab
that.
him when he does it?
Yeah, he grabs him by the throat.
Okay, because at some point he had to get implanted. Well, I don't want to give. Well, I guess we are talking about it.
I mean, I think by this point they've probably seen the
This
episode.
is where it has to happen, right? This is the only place it could have happened.
Yes. Yeah, well, they discuss it later, that he's got a cellular thing in his hand that he transfers there when his thing's
So
around
then
his
this
neck.
fixes my wormhole already. Like, so all of the times where we don't see the bad guy and he's whispering and he's like in lots of sweaters, clearly wearing many sweaters as disguise, it's Bashir? That's what we're to understand?
Yes.
Okay, great. I didn't know if that was just him.
Yeah.
Because at first, Keith, you should become a patron to watch my watch along because I have some wild theories about how he's popping from person to person because they do such a great job of presenting red herrings. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, I ain't paying to, but you should.
Somebody gift Keith a Patreon.
Just because I don't spend enough hours staring at you.
I know. Look at these teeth, man. I paid for these teeth. These are for you, Keith.
Oh, look, they're beautiful. All right. So anyway, we begin Act 1. Back on Deep Space Nine, Bashir wakes up the guard, Ty Kajata, a.k.a. Clarice Starling.
And he doesn't hit on her either. Come on,
No.
Bashir.
It's weird. It's weird. Anyway, so Clarice is very concerned about making sure that Vantika, i.e. Hannibal Lecter, is being super dead. We learn that he's faked his death a bunch of times and is a super bad guy.
She's like,
She
is he
makes that
merely dead
very
or is he
clear.
really quite sincerely
Quite
dead?
sincerely dead. No, that's a big question. So, yeah, I mean, they definitely hit that on the head pretty hard. No surprise.
She's like, I want to see his body. I want you to autopsy him. And hey, by the way, do you have a huge syringe?
Right. Oh, they look in his eye. They look
Mhm.
his optical nerve, see if there's anything alive there. That's a cool effect, cool makeup. So, yeah, no, that's a big deal. So at Quark's, Odo and Quark spar about Dex, naturally. And, of course, we're reinforcing here that Quark is just as horny for Dax as Bashir.
Yeah, but guess
And
what?
we also...
Odo's pretty horny for her, too.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. He's like, oh, she's a loner. I'm a loner. And then, of course, Odo's like, oh, do you have a loner boner? And Odo just looks silently. But in that silence, we know.
That he has... I'm sorry, the quote was, he has a loner boner.
But I believe, yes, Keith, I believe that was the phrase coined this episode.
I would like to formally apologize to everyone watching and or listening to this.
Keith, I made it like a relative 6 to 7 episodes, like relatively serious. So a couple loner boners here and there, I got to pepper. I got to be me.
Mike is thirsty.
He's thirsty.
Okay, that's a bumper from our other show, but apparently Mike's thirst,
Can ne'er be quenched.
much like Vantika, is able to transport itself into different vessels and different episodes. Anyway,
Right, we're
so
sparring. We're sparring.
at some point, Quark says, smooth, pliant flesh. And it's a line that only Armin Shimmerman can pull off without being ridiculous. But guess what? As they're talking, a Federation officer, security officer, George Primin, comes up to Odo and starts questioning his methods and pulling rank. Apparently, there's a shipment of space goo, Duridium, showing up, and they're all super nervous about it because Vantika was planning to hijack the system. There's Primin. So, what did you think of Primin when you first met him?
Well, I thought he was fine. I mean, I thought it was pretty like blatant foreshadowing when Odo was there and he's like, I work best alone. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, here's another security guy. And I'm like, okay, Journey, we've got to learn to partner. But I come to believe that he's the bad guy because I'm like, why would they just insert this character for no reason? But then we've got like this secret character, bad guy running around. I'm like, oh, definitely him. 100%.
Oh, you thought it was Primin. That's interesting. So after they meet, Primin meets with Cisco and is way condescending about Odo. We don't like him. Cisco puts him in his place and tells Primin to work with Odo. So to Primon's credit, he actually goes to meet Odo and apologizes. So maybe he's not so shitty. I don't know. It's hard to tell at this point what his deal is. So Odo tries to show Primon his plan on how they're going to keep Vantika from stealing the space goo, but his Dropbox is disconnected, and everything has been purged and wiped on the RAM and the computer, which is not great. You don't want to see database services not available. It's pretty much like our tech today.
Yes.
So
I like
insight.
screenshots. I mentioned in my watch along that I really enjoy seeing how they show like various future tech. So I always try to get a good screenshot because it's cool. It's usually cool.
It's pretty cool. It's funny that, because we're doing this on television, we're doing it in low definition, the font sizes on all of the screens have to be enormous. Can you imagine, like, if you're looking at your computer and database service is not available in like 120 point font? That'd be and no other information. Anyway, so the scene continues and Clarice arrives weirdly and says that's what Vantika did before. He also purged the memory. So my question here was, where did she come from? Was she just like lurking outside of the door to the security office?
Well, this is when I started to think, maybe she's the bad guy. Red herring number 2, I'm thinking. Also, I'm thinking often the show does, this is like second or third time they've had a plot device where one of the characters, and I think Q was one time doing this, is basically telling the crew who's trying to figure out this mystery exactly what is happening, like solving it in real time, Jessica Fletchering like hard, and nobody wants to listen to them. Like, in fact, they lock her security out. They're like, yeah, no, you can't, you don't even get access.
She's like, right in the beginning of Act 1, she's like, this is exactly what's happening. This is exactly what he's done before. And they're like, blah, blah, blah. No,
he can't be alive. We shined a laser in his eyes and he didn't blink. He's dead.
That's... It's the laser blink test. It's infallible. All right. So we begin Act 2, and it's an all-skate meeting. More screens. So many screens. It's like, my setup here. So in an all-skate meeting, Clarice is pounding the table, trying to get folks to believe her that Hannibal is still alive. Apparently, he purged the RAM, which doesn't seem like it would technobabble. And Primon keeps stepping on Odo's toes. Now, of course, they're having this meeting in Ops because they haven't built the set for the conference room yet. Which is why they're having that. We eventually are going to have a great conference room on Deep Space Nine, just like they do on the Enterprise, but didn't have one yet. So here we are on the bridge.
Shocker. Odo's pissed.
Yeah, Odo's pissed. Odo's, not surprisingly, he's kind of territorial.
And he quits, as a matter of fact.
He does, but we're not there yet because I have one more sentence to say.
Oh, all right.
And Clarice reminds us that Vantika has been working on genetic experiments to prolong his life.
Now Odo's pissed.
Odo quits. Now Odo's pissed. He pulls Sisko aside and tries to resign. And Sisko tries to reassure him, but he tells him he's going to have to work with Primon and that Odo is in charge.
But that's that's shorting it, Keith. He's not only that, you know what he says to him? He goes, I like you.
Yeah.
I like you a lot. You tell me how you think. I like you. Couldn't do it without you, buddy. He gives him a cool pep talk. I really like that scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's being a good boss because, either bosses will tell you, like, you're in charge or he's in charge, or say, you guys have to work together. But rarely will you get you're in charge, but you have to work together in a way, which is, it's good bossing. Good bossing. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Dax has discovered that someone broke into the cargo bay. She's also found a memory card in Vantika's possessions containing a map of the humanoid brain.
Oh, and it is super good CGI. We're going to look at it in a second here.
Super good CGI.
So
there's the memory card.
XD card, yeah.
There's a really fancy CGI for 1993. And of course, in the scene, Terry Farrell butchers Vantika's name, and they don't bother to fix it in ADR. because apparently Siddig took all the booth time. So by now, we figured it all out, but the show's still holding on to the pretense that we're dumb. But so here's the question. At this point, I had figured out what the transfer had happened, but you had not. You were still wondering who.
At this point, I think I'm still thinking it's Clarice.
Interesting. But make me laugh.
Actually, Keith,
That wasn't enough?
this is a great point because this is the scene I believe that the Ferengi ditty was supposed to be. So why don't you go ahead and quickly on the spot over the next 3 screenshots, just sing us a little Ferengi ditty. Do-wah ditty, Ferengi do, Ferengi don't.
Oh, yes. Do-wah ditty. I take your money. I give you drinks, but they're not that great. Hippity hop. I'm a Ferengi. Give me some Ubox. And my ears will inflate.
Okay. Right. All right. Well, we're going to have to workshop it, but we'll come back.
I mean, it's no worse than all the songs in Lord of the Rings. Those things were horrible.
Keep close your enemies. Keep closer your Ferengemies. All right. Let's just move forward. Pretend this never happened.
Where are we?
Hopefully
all right.
The Ferengi is near. Oh, forget it. I can't even come up with a good pun. Quark's on his hands and knees looking for earrings.
Quark is out looking for stuff. So it's late at Quark's, which closes for some reason.
It's a casino.
Understand.
Yeah, casinos don't close.
Also, like, they're in space. There's no like sunrise, sunset. They're like, why would it ever close? It's like an airport. It's strange.
Because
anyway,
when are clandestine meetings supposed to happen?
I know that happened in my place of establishment, as opposed to maybe if I'm having a clandestine meeting, maybe I want to be somewhere else. But yeah, whatever. So anyway, Quark yells at his employees and then is accosted by somebody wearing very comfy ski gloves. You got to keep those hands warm when you're strangling a Ferengi.
I got nothing.
All right, good, very good. So apparently, Quark has been hired to assemble mercenaries for Vantika, which is the first truly illegal thing that he does on the show.
That was an anecdote I was going to say. Like, he's been on the fringes before, but this is the first time he's pure bad guy.
Like, yeah, full on. Like, this is not just like a little bit bad; it's like very bad.
Especially when he's heard word that like this is the big bad that we're looking for, right? Hasn't he been part of those conversations?
Yeah, and he's hiring mercenaries to allow this guy to steal the space goo, which can blow up stuff, I guess. It's weird. Anyway, back in the infirmary, Clarice asked Bashir for the scan results. And he says the body was definitely Vantika Hannibal. But Dax calls Bashir and shows him Vantika. So Dax calls Bashir and shows him Vantika's plan to transfer his consciousness to another brain. So here's where we get to what the actual plan was. And Bashir's okay.
Sorry. Go back one screenshot. What I found so interesting about this scene was that they like gave a whole backstory to this extra. He clearly got a space hernia, and so he's like, "Here's a zap," and he's like, "Make sure next time you lift something heavy, you use the like anti-gravity hydraulic lift." And I was like, "Wow, they really went hard into that space hernia."
Now, of course, I've had a hernia, a non-space hernia, and as I remember, it's not on my shoulder.
Well, it's his back. I think he hurt his back and his I guess maybe he didn't have a space hernia. Maybe he just had a space backache.
He could have had a herniated disc.
Okay, let's go with that, Keith.
Yeah, fixed it. Boom, you're welcome. Yeah, so look, there it is. Use the anti-grav generator, which I wish I could have in real life. So Bashir says there's a humanoid brain only uses a small portion of its brain, which is, not true. That's an old wives' tale. But apparently the writers are sci-fi writers and not a doctor. But it's really funny, and perhaps that was what we believed at the time. I'm actually not entirely sure. but sometimes the science ages really well, and sometimes the science doesn't age that well. Anyway, they decide that Vantika must have put his consciousness into Clarice, but she doesn't know it. So there's a red herring. And so, of course, the team decides to cut her out of the security plans. And so they say, like, we should surveil her, but Primin says the security teams are too tied up in preparations to surveil the number one suspect. To which I say, what are they doing? You know, they're trying to stop a terrorist attack, essentially. They're going to, like, steal the plutonium and make the boom, whatever it is. And wouldn't you think that if you have a number one suspect of the it might be worth surveilling, because it's a space station. What are they doing in preparation for somebody showing up with some goo?
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. I don't know, like that part of it, like the logic of that didn't make any sense to me. Anyway, Clarice figures out immediately that she's locked out because she's smart, and she confronts Odo, and she suspects Quark. So there's a lot of filler happening, a lot of fingers being pointed. And we head back to Quark's, which is still closed for some reason, even though everyone else is up and doing stuff. Quark is hiring the mercenaries. And of course, Clarice catches them, but then, in what suffices for a Star Trek stunt, falls off of the balcony. So
this is where I'm certain that she has been passengered. I'm certain it's her because there's nobody up there. Quark says there's nobody up there. So I assumed that, like, the inner head, the passenger implanted in her head made her fall. I'm certain of it at this point. So I don't know how you figured it out, but, like, because clearly Bashir wasn't up there making her fall. I guess he was, but I don't know. They made it such a point to say nobody else was there.
Yeah. No, that's true. Well, you know, you can't see Bashir. He's got his ski gloves on.
That's true.
So, I mean, it's kind of irrefutable. So in Act 3, all right, she falls. Boom, she's down. In the infirmary, she says that she was pushed off. And Bashir says, I need to make you unconscious. And Quark and Odo head off to investigate. So
I should have picked that up, Keith. I should have sniffed that out.
There it is. Cisco joins Dax in the morgue, and she's scraping under Vantika's fingernails, looking for the delivery method. And in what I think is a pretty cool piece of Star Trek tech, she finds a microscopic generator, which stored his consciousness. Which is weird because a generator generates power, not storing consciousness, but whatever. I'm assuming the generator stored the memory card, and it's all microscopic. That's pretty cool. They can't check Clarice until... So they go back and it's like, oh, let's check and see what's in her brain. Because Bashir says it needs to be stabilized from a 5-foot fall that appeared to have no injuries. In sci-fi terms, where they can, like, wave a little thing and, like, fix a broken bone immediately.
Hernia.
But that, she had a space hernia, so she had to be stabilized. And nobody's like, huh? Anyway, Kira tries to get some technobabble out, and we discover that, Primin is missing.
Hold on. You're skirting through these screenshots. This is all the cool tech stuff we're looking at.
It is cool tech stuff. So
you need 7 different machines to find microscopic generator.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's old school, like, cop mystery here. Mm-hmm. Scraping under fingernails. I think that was pretty cool.
That looks like looks like the one of your toys on Deep Space, or like your the Bridge Crew.
It sure does.
Toy.
And you see the Elcar thing that they were using there, which is pretty cool. It looks great. I mean, it's sci-fi, but it's I think the Elcar design, it has held up this whole time. It looks great. It makes sense. The touchscreen is way ahead of its time to the point where it doesn't feel out of date still today.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. So anyway, here we are with the Kira and the Technobabble. We find Primin is missing, and we find Quark taking the mercenaries to a runabout. And they discover, dun, 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 it's Bashir. We meet evil Bashir, and that is the end of our Act 3. So you, who thought it was all these other people, how did you feel when it was the Bashir reveal?
Well, I got that when they found his comm, but
Right.
yeah, I felt it was cool. I thought it was a good twist. It made sense. It clicked for me. It clicked for me a little bit later because I thought that they actually did a pretty good job with the red herrings. So I found it satisfying, and I thought it was a cool little beat for Shimmerman there to have to try to, even though he's so far into the plot that he can't even really back away, but he does. We took a wrong turn. I thought that was a good comedy beat, and I was very excited to see how, because clearly Evil Bashir was started. He's been Evil Bashir the whole time,
Right.
which is cool because he hasn't been doing a voice the whole time, but now he can really let loose and be his true evil self. And is it his choice on the space? Here's my question: is the vocalization? Do you think they went that route because in the beginning that's how the character delivered his voice, so it seems like maybe that's just his cadence, and so Bashir, or I'm sorry, I forget the actor's name who plays Bashir.
Alexander Siddig. Yeah.
Yes, he's miming that.
I mean, yes, from a practical standpoint, but I think it was more because we only get 3 words from the original one.
Yeah.
That he needed to come up with a bad guy voice.
But isn't that guy on the ship with him? Isn't his like co-pilot on the ship at the end? Isn't he also one of those species? So could we say, and he talks like that too a little bit. So we could make an assumption that that's how the species talks.
I don't think they're the same species. I think
okay.
one of the mercenaries, but I could be wrong on that. I genuinely could be wrong.
That's just how that's how I connected the dots in my head. Because I had to make it make sense.
Well, I mean, look, from a practical standpoint, you have to show who's in charge, right? Because what they're saying about the shared consciousness, right, is that
it's locked away. It's unconscious.
That Vanica is able to take over when he wants to, but Bashir is there when he's Bashir and is not aware that he's being taken over. So that's cool. So you need to be able to differentiate the voices. So I get it. So anyway, at the beginning of Act 4, Odo finds Primin, and he's doing some more investigation, and he found a bug in the plumbing, playing the same basic game that Vantica did to wipe out the Dropbox the first time. So nice work, Robert Petkoff. He found the bug.
And more importantly, Odo learns to trust another, Keith.
He learns to open his heart. He doesn't have a heart, but he opens up the goo where his heart would normally be. So after all the plans they made to protect the station, they were doing all sorts of stuff. Like they were we're gonna dock in docking bay 8, but really it's gonna be 12, but really it's gonna be 7, and they've got security everywhere. None of that matters because Bashir takes the runabout and goes out to meet the ship as opposed to letting it even get to Deep Space Nine. And on the transfer ship, we see. So let me see. We get to the. There's the transfer ship, and I thought this was interesting because, hey, that's a cool model. That's a cool shot right there, with all the details. But here on the transfer ship, right, which is supposed to be from this other species, there's all those Federation LCARs. So it's like they're running Windows, Federation Windows on this alien ship.
It's ubiquitous software.
I guess so. I find it took me out a little bit because is this a Federation transfer ship? Is it not? Because those extras there are clearly not wearing Federation. They're not they're not wearing Federation uniforms, but I don't know. That was a question. I don't know what to make of the LCARs, but there it is. So be it. We then had the shootout, and in the shootout, the rules are all of the extras have to dance into frame, freeze, and then be shot. Yes. So it's utterly ridiculous, this shootout, because it was basically they do this, zap, down. They do literally nothing. Um,
But there's a lot of cool
but
little laser shooty shoots.
lots of laser shooty shoots. That's fun. And Evil Bashir takes command. They put a tractor beam on the. But Deep Space Nine puts a tractor beam on the ship. And Evil Bashir is pissed because he thought because he'd disconnected them from Dropbox, their tractor beam wasn't going to work. But luckily, Primin was all over it. So Sisko hails them. We meet Vantika, Evil Bashir, with some pretty awful dialogue. Poor Alexander Siddig. This is a pretty eggy scene for him here. Not his fault. Evil Bashir threatens to blow up the ship.
I think you let him off the hook too easy.
Well, look, he's like 20-something years old. They give him the script the night before. All right. You know what? Mike,
all you
evil
had to do
voice.
was give me a little bit of evil, Keith. Give me movie trailer guy with a little bit of gravel. Would have been better than whatever the hell we got from Siddig.
So that's your submission?
Look, on the spot. I'm just saying there were other choices to make. You know what? Maybe he gets to own a little bit of it, but I think the direction too. Like, get some more choices in the can. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Yeah. I feel like they could have. I mean, honestly, just saying it normal would have been better than whatever.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
was.
we got the explanation, and like, there's enough in the dialogue of how Siddig or how Bashir is like unconscious, and I'm the bad guy. We could have just done it straight because he played it straight the rest of the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's. Oh, well.
It's just tough. These things happen very quickly, and there's not a lot of planning. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what my evil voice would be, but I don't think you need to do a voice. Anyway, so Evil Bashir threatens to blow up the ship and kill Good Bashir if they don't let him go, of course. But luckily, Dax has a plan to technobabble Pulse and get Vantika out. And, they have a blah, blah, blah. Bashir kills one of the henchmen. And of course, like, the lighting now is like this very old school, like 1940s noir, like only his eyes are in the light because he's evil.
I like the technobabble tractor beam when we're going to get in a couple seconds. At least they'd make the effort to show the little, the like override come through the tractor beam.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
like
cool.
it is cool. I mean, they're able to sort of send a.
That's a cool shot.
Oh, there's him. There's him killing his henchman. It's a great shot. I love that. And okay, so here is the technobabble Pulse, and it works. And Bashir's consciousness comes back.
This is the scene right here, though.
Oh no! This wasn't great.
Oh,
what? What am I? It's not great. It's not great. It's nobody's fault. It's just not great. Anyway, so he
gotta hit the button. Did I do it?
He's able to drop the shields at the last second. And luckily, because it's Federation L-Cars, he knows what button to press.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he'd have no idea. Because why would Bashir know what the shield button is? They beam him back onto the station, and we have a Jekyll and Hyde moment for a second. And luckily, Sisko shoots him before they sing Confrontation.
Cisco made some assumptions.
I mean, to be fair, it was stun. Though I really would have liked to have seen.
Had to do what I had to do.
Do you ever think that I would ever let you go?
But it's Hasselhoff just for a minute.
Yes, I definitely only want the Hasselhoff version. Oh my god, I saw that live. I saw Hasselhoff do it live.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should be.
And if you folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, I can help you out. Just go to YouTube and type in David Hasselhoff, Jekyll and Hyde. The whole thing's up there.
Yeah, he came in as a replacement in the Broadway production near the end of the run.
And he coughed all over the place.
I will say this. no disrespect to the Hoff. The Hoff's the man. He's Knight Rider forever, you know. However, what you see on YouTube, which, Mike, how would you describe the performance you see on YouTube?
You know what I would call it? Evil Bashirian.
Evil Bashirian, yes. I can say, because I saw him perform the show about 4 days before they filmed that. I would say the work they did to improve his performance for that video was like James Cameron Ian.
Okay.
So
All right.
it was much, much worse even in real life. Anyway, no disrespect. I get it. You were, good for you. Anyway, I'm going to cut that. I don't even know how to say that. Anyway, that happened. So, all right. So what happens at the end here is Dax beams Hannibal's consciousness into a blinky coaster.
Yep.
And that's a cool shot. That's a cool effect there. And another cool shot. I mean, the effects here are really great.
Yes, I would say that my highest praise for the episode is I thought the special effects were very good.
Yeah. They were excellent. And happily, regular thirsty Bashir is back. Hooray! And we finished the episode with Clarice executing Vatica's coaster by shooting her gun in the infirmary, which seems like a security risk. Also, an execution. I don't think,
straight up murder.
I have a lot of questions.
At least we giggle and go to black.
Yes, we giggle. And, yeah, we had like at the end of every sitcom, it's like, we just executed somebody by firing a weapon in our infirmary on a space station. But whatever, we're not going to worry about that. No. So there it is. There is the passenger on Deep Space Nine. All right. Well, you know what it's time for, Mike?
I think I do.
Yes, let's do it. And now it's time for Mike Indeglio's Star Trek Vocabulary Quiz. Okay, our first quiz is, and this is said multiple times on the show, a subspace shunt.
Yes, a subspace shunt. Well, Keith, it seems to be some sort of piece of equipment that can be used as sort of like a manual override for various systems. It can be used to kind of hack in and like override security systems and things of that nature. Okay, you know what? I'll allow it.
Affirmative.
I'm unclear why it's in subspace, because that's really a communications thing, but whatever.
Or why they're so easy to get a hold of that there are multiple overrides. It seems very unsafe.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like a thing Quark could get you, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's important.
Also, does anyone else feel weird with the word shunt? That doesn't feel right to me.
Don't be dirty. Oh, God, it's so loud. I don't know why that got so loud. I loaded another one because it always takes us more than the time. All right, so your second word is waste extraction.
Well, Keith, in space, there's no gravity, so it's this tube you stick up your butt that sucks out the waste.
I'm afraid.
Inaccurate. Data in error.
Although, you know what? To be fair, in your defense, Star Trek is famous for not really explaining where does the poop go? Because we never see. I just
Keith, it froze when this was the freeze. It went, where does the poop go?
Where does the poop go? These are all very important questions. In fact, we never see a bathroom on Star Trek, at least through Next Generation. So there's bathrooms on the map, but we never see it. We don't really talk about what is waste extraction, what happens. I would have to. Do they beam it out? I mean, I'm assuming they must.
When you're eating replicated food, you don't have real poop.
I'm pretty sure they have real poop.
You'd figure there's some sort of zapper on the toilet that just disintegrates. Look how easily she disintegrated that thing.
That maybe there's a phaser.
Yeah.
So you just have to phaser away your poop. Well, that's waste extraction. So, anyway, that's some sort of a plumbing. All right. Well, boy, we are having a weird
Wait, so what was
episode.
wrong? What is waste extraction?
Well, we don't really know. We know that it's the plumbing. I mean,
Okay.
it's however they extract waste, and it's always vague, but it's referenced many times.
Then I
on
think
the
the
show.
poop tube should have been partial credit, but let's go on.
I'm pretty sure there's no like tube suppository that people. I don't think. Anyway. Well, if this couldn't get weirder, let's move along home too. Okay.
That is really disturbing, especially out of context, I have to say.
Well, just you wait. We're about to put it in context.
Now? Today?
Not today,
Okay.
but soon. Let's talk about, Mike, were there any wormholes in the plot?
Well, maybe. So my issue is the voice, and as you said, the voice indicates who's in control.
Right.
Now, you seem to imply when I asked the question before that from the very beginning of the episode, what's the bad guy's name?
Vantica.
Vantica is in the forefront.
Has the ability to be in the forefront.
Oh, okay. So that's what I'm saying. Like, is he switching on and off? Like, is
Yes.
Bashir for some of it?
Yeah, my understanding is that he's there able to take control, but then when he doesn't want to take control, he lets Bashir be in charge without realizing that he's been zombified.
Well, because it seems like later in the episode, when Bashir comes back, he's all confused and he's like, "Where am I at? Where am I at? Where am I at?"
Right.
So why isn't before when he lets him when he takes over that he doesn't know? I guess because he does it at night. Maybe he's sleeping.
Yeah, I think he's able to take over Bashir without Bashir knowing, but I think the reason Bashir was so confused
Because they
he
sucked
wasn't
him out right before.
well because he was on like an unfamiliar ship with like bodies all around him.
All right. Well, what purpose would he have for letting Bashir go back in charge?
Oh, so that people wouldn't get suspicious because he wouldn't. I don't think he had Bashir's knowledge.
Oh, he didn't have couldn't like trill it and like have access to all the.
Well, but I guess maybe that is a wormhole in the plot, right? Because he's able to use Bashir's security codes to get control of the runabout. So he had access to Bashir's knowledge, but maybe he just thought he'd be much better at faking it if it was actual Bashir.
I'm going to put it this way. I feel that the possession / machinations of that whole thing are a little loosey-goosey, which led to some confusion. But that's the best I can say as far as worm. I don't have anything else. Although, do you?
Well, I think my biggest question, and it's not necessarily a hole in the plot, it's just the security system and plan, to do this transfer was just handled in a very, convenient for television, but incompetent way. And, Odo and even Primin clearly not incompetent. And they would have, I think, just handled that all much differently and much more carefully. It was because it's a bit of a MacGuffin. I don't really know what this substance was or, how they were trying to protect it. What were they expecting to happen? But they just handled it weirdly.
Well, it also seems weird that like they seem to indicate not only do you have 2 high security officials on board, but it seemed like he's like, we're stretched thin, meaning they had a whole team of people with all these different things going on. And no one's checking the logs to see if like any unauthorized or unscheduled runabouts are going on out. You know what I mean?
Well, and also here's another one, right? So if they are so freaked out about the security of this shipment,
yeah, why not have a security
and
official
then,
go out and escort them in?
Well, but also the ship itself, right? It comes out of the wormhole. It has no defenses. the ship itself has no defenses. A runabout, a shuttlecraft goes out there and they're able to just beam on and shoot anybody. They don't have any security on the ship. They don't have their shields up, so they can just beam on. They don't have any defenses whatsoever. It was weird. Like it was just odd that if it was so important, it was so scary or whatever, they had no defenses whatsoever. So Vantica didn't need to be on the station at all. All he needed was any ship, and he could beam on and take it at any point along the way in the transfer. So that didn't make any sense.
I agree.
All right. So let's talk about our favorite moment in this episode, Mike.
Well, spoiler alert, not the strongest episode we've seen. So little moments spoke to me. And I got to tell you, my favorite moment in this episode, Keith, was the moment where Odo quits. And Ben Sisko is like, yeah, no, you don't. I love you, buddy. I think you're awesome. I wouldn't want anybody else in your position. Now, suck it up and go teamwork. I thought it was a great moment for them it was a great human moment for Ben to Odo, and it was a great leadership moment of being able to be forceful and also the previous scene. I'm going to tie them together because he's respectful to the Federation, but he also lays the smack down, and he's like, no, this is how it's going to go. So that beat there is actually my favorite bit of the episode.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that, you know, when we talk about the rating, I'm going to talk about this, but about the lack of these. But for me, the strongest part about this show are the little character beats, right? Because the rest of it doesn't really matter, right? So for me, it's the Odo Quark discussion about Odo sort of being, you know, solitude and you know, we're sort of hitting this pretty hard that he's a loner. But you know, I like that dynamic, obviously. And I like learning a little bit more about Odo and his dynamic with Primin, his sort of defensiveness and vulnerability there. But he sticks up for himself. You know, anything in the show, you know what? I'm going to save it for the rating. Let's go to the rating.
No, but I'd like to go backwards in time for a second.
Okay. Hit me
And
with
this is
another wormhole.
maybe this is something, it's not a wormhole, but it didn't fit well with me with what we've established. And you and I kind of hinted at it earlier. And maybe things will progress later in the series. But as we stand now, I always felt like one thing I liked about Quark and about the Ferengi is their risk assessment. They'll do some shady shit, but they generally assess risk, and more so than risk, where they can have leverage. And it seemed to me like this seemed a silly time for Quark to go full help the bad guy, when perhaps he could have used this potential plot to garner some favor and leverage with Sisko and the protagonists. It seemed weird for him to just kind of like go in on this exchange, hire all these mercenaries, have this exchange of a really dangerous thing. It just didn't seem like smart on his part.
I think that's an excellent point, actually. Both in terms of Quark's behavior in this episode, but also understanding the Ferengi. You know, the risk assessment. How can I benefit from this? That makes a great deal of sense. And I think that's a good observation, especially only 8 episodes in, about Quark and about the Ferengi. And you're right. There are two things that Quark is in this episode, which we haven't seen him before. Going under the assumption that Vantica has this horrible super weapon goo or whatever, and it's a possibility of like killing people, like a lot of people. That means that what Quark did here was both reckless, right? Just so sloppy, so reckless. He's meeting in his own shop. They're just like walking to the runabout with goons, like with no plan to cover it up. Just reckless and ill thought out. But also, like bad, like actually like helping a terrorist bad. And neither one of those things have we seen from Quark before. And so this episode does not treat the character of Quark very well. It's an episode that doesn't quite understand Quark. And I think does some damage to the character, which is going to tie into my rating thoughts here about why I agree with you. This is not a good episode of Deep Space Nine. So do you want to go first or shall I go?
Um,
You go
you'll
first.
okay, sure.
That's the
You
rules.
usually have more salient thoughts, anyhow. Um, Look, I'll give it this. I think you're gonna probably knock it for its mystery more than I. I actually found that I didn't catch on as quickly as you. I thought they presented enough red herrings and enough plausible other suspects. Now, look, the machinations of it, the fact that he could transfer, like that wasn't a revelation. Obviously, that was pretty easy to figure out. Um, so I thought that that was pretty good. Unfortunately, generally the show does a much better job of tying the stakes and the plot lines and the character beats together. And I felt a sheer lack of cohesion in this episode. There didn't seem to be a real. They didn't even give a lot of backstory as to why this transport of this material was happening, or why it was dangerous, or what it was even. It just seemed to be a machination of a plot point, like you said, a MacGuffin. And Quark's a little reckless. The whole team. I like that we get a lot of. You and I love a board meeting where everybody's kind of strategizing, and we got a lot of that. So that was cool. I won't even go into detail about the bad guy Bashir performance. We're gonna give him or letting him off the hook because he got the script late, I guess. That's cool. It was what it was. But the point was, is it wasn't earned. Is I think the biggest deal. Though I will say, I felt that the sort of transfer of consciousness idea as a bad guy escaping death is cool. Although they kind of telegraphed that it happened. Also, I felt like they underutilized the security officer from the other ship, Clarice. It seemed like she could have been a bigger part of the episode, and then just commits genocide or a murder at the end, homicide at the end. Yeah, you're going to talk about. I'm sure the little character beats were the better parts. I thought we got to. There's some good Odo development here, some good stuff from Ben. Even Kira gets some kind of fun parts in the beginning, and I thought the Odo, also the security Odo team up bit seemed like it was going to go somewhere, but it didn't really go somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt a little bit lackadaisical, and since we've had such strong episodes up to this point, I think it was glaring. So yeah, I'm going to say when it comes to self-sealing stem bolts, Keith.
Yes.
I'm working on something. It turns out that rhyming self-sealing stem bolts isn't that easy, so I'm going a different tactic. Hopefully next week we'll have something for that.
Okay. All right. How many
but
volts
anyway,
in the bolts?
This is subpar. I'm going to go 6.
Out of 100.
61.83
Oh, for Christ's sake.
self-sealing stem bolts.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no. I don't think there's much you can defend about this episode. It's just it's not offensive. Like there are a couple of episodes coming up that are kind of offensive, but it's not offensive. It's not a Deep Space Nine episode in the sense that
this just in, Keith. It is. It is, as a matter of fact.
Well, I mean, technically, right? But this plot, this story could be attached to any Star Trek show. You throw it on Next Gen, throw it on the original series, throw it on Discovery, whatever. The basic plot machinations aren't specific to the show or these characters. So, which is why the characters themselves sort of serve as plot devices and not people. So Quark is acting out of character, and so it's just sort of lacking the storytelling, character development beats. It's just sort of like a whodunit. And look, I really like the mystery part, the subdermal generator and the consciousness transferring. Like, cool, all right, that's fine. I don't mind that. If you just write that into a story involving our characters being characters, great. I don't mind a Federation security person tangling with Odo, right? That makes sense. Like, why wouldn't the Federation have their own security here? And why wouldn't Odo tangle with them? And, it's a beat we're going to do later a little bit better than this episode. The performance-wise, it was tough. They didn't set up people for success here. And I liked the effects. I liked some of the sciencey stuff, but the logic of it, of the actual Vantika's plan and their defense of the plan was it was kind of lazy. It seemed like it was all a setup, right, to give an opportunity for this amazing performance, right? It seemed like a let's set up somebody to give this crazy great performance, and then the rest of it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Well, you didn't get that. You didn't get the time or the execution to give us a cool acting beat either. So it ended up just sort of being kind of messy and kind of boring and not really a good representation of the show. So, look, it's season 1. It's a show finding its feet. It's trying to figure out what it is and how they're going to handle it. And much like in the first couple of seasons of The Next Generation, some of their stories and plots were recycled, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were either rewrites, like a redo of original series episodes, like The Naked Now. The second episode of Next Gen is basically just a copy-paste redoing of an original series episodes. And sometimes they had episodes that they had written for a different series. When they were going to do phase 2, they had leftover scripts that they sort of adapted into the Next Gen. It's one of the reasons that the first couple seasons of Next Gen are so terrible, because they were just sort of recycling other things. And this feels like a script that wasn't good enough to be filmed for Next Gen. They're like, let's just do it on Deep Space Nine. And they did some copy replace on some of these characters and made it happen. So it just wasn't, it wasn't good. I'm not going to pretend like this was a good episode. It wasn't a good episode. There it is. And so when you're not that good, you don't get that many self-sealing stem bolts. So you get 63 self-sealing stem bolts from me. So that leaves us with only one more thing to do, and that is announce what the next episode is. Mike, I'm excited. This is going to be fun. This is going to fill in some very important holes for you, Mike, because next episode is Move Along Home. We're gonna find out what the AlamarEmmys are all about. It is a famous episode of Deep Space Nine. It is not a
Wait, is that the one we just did with toys, where like Ben's wearing like his weird like fishing gear and stuff?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was like season 7 or something.
Yeah. No, I don't even know what you're talking about, but it's not that. Okay. That's not even the same show. Those were Next Generation toys.
So AlamarEmmys, Keith, that's what we're doing next week.
We are going to explain the AlamarEmmys, the creepy guy we're going to meet. We're going to do all of that and see spoiler alert, what was voted by the fans on the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, one of the top 5 worst episodes of Star Trek in all of space, time, and canon. But there are folks out there who like this episode. There are folks out there who will defend this episode. It's a very ambitious episode. So I'm really excited to talk next week about Come Along Home.
One last thing before we go, Keith. If there are folks out there, and I bet there are, that will defend this episode, even though it's going to be edited within an inch of its life because of all the dropouts we had,
there's no defending our episode.
They can show their support at patreon.com/K&M. And you can, we always do appreciate those who've already subscribed, or whatever
and folks,
the word is.
Whether you're in the Patreon or not, we want to know what you think about this episode of Deep Space Nine, or even us, whatever. Leave a comment below on the YouTube, or you can find us on the Patreon. We're really happy to hear from you. So we will see you back next week with Move Along Home. Till then, this has been. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/K&M.